Yeah, I'll react to that, sure. Hello. I just finished the Irish video on Economics Explained. Great video. Phones away, everyone. Napoleon. Yeah, so Ireland, they had like a loophole with Bermuda and the Netherlands, and that loophole closed in 2020, but the businesses don't exactly have a tax loophole. They don't have a great alternative, and so they're staying around. Ireland is doing very well, so that's good for them. Norway. Is it the perfect economy? So, Preemptive Like, great channel. Check him out. When I've done the Swedish economy video, and when I think of the difference between Sweden and Norway, I think of oil, okay? I know Norway has a lot of oil offshore. So yeah, that's going to factor in. And I also know that Norway is one of the few, or is unique in that some threshold of oil being a part of your economy almost always makes your government corrupt. In fact, I'm looking at it right now. I think I've seen this video. Polymatter. Have I seen this one?
Oil has long been
I would have liked it. That's another video. I might watch that one as well. Where is it? Okay, so yeah, let's get started. My name is Connor. I like to learn stuff. Yeah, by watching things on YouTube. Riveting, I know. Yeah, original link to the video, top of the description, right below that, link to the Discord. Love to have you. Pull up a chair, my friend. Let's go. Preemptive like. A little low volume.
This is Norway.
Never mind.
Norway is a remarkable country that has time and time again been used as the poster child for a socialist, capitalist, mixed economy done right. The country boasts one of the highest GDPs per capita in the world, falling only behind Switzerland and a select group of micronations.
Where's Monica?
The country has a robust trade surplus, one of the highest national life expectancies, an extremely skilled workforce with one of the highest proportion of university graduates of any country in the world, a very, very low unemployment rate, and international recognition of the country.
I'm surprised the United States is higher than Norway in this metric statistic.
In the world, a very, very low unemployment rate, and international recognition as a place that is very easy to do business. What is more remarkable is that Norway has achieved this while also being one of the most economically equal countries in the world. After taxes, a single individual from the bottom 20% of income earners in Norway still earns on average a quarter of what their top 20% income earner would. Now, this still sounds pretty unfair.
Yeah, but like I said, there's this thing with oil-rich countries where that is extremely rare. And so I know a little bit about the oil in Norway, but a lot to learn.
Compared to the OECD average,
Yes,
which has top fifth earners making an income 10 times that of their bottom fifth counterparts, this 4 times disparity is remarkably equal. The good news keeps on coming when considering working conditions. Norway has extremely robust workers' protections, meaning that social issues like working extremely long hours or people needing second jobs to support themselves is very rare. In fact, the OECD Better Life Index notes that only 3% of employees work very long hours when compared to the OECD average of 11% or the American average of 33%. All of this contributes to the citizens of Norway being some of the happiest in the world, despite their country looking like this for half the year.
I like the snow and the cold.
What is their secret? Norway, by all standards, should be the model that most citizens would want to replicate in their own countries. So why haven't other countries adopted similar economic policies to those in Norway? Is this country just a lucky outlier, or could this success be replicated in other economies around the world?
I like to make commie jokes, okay? I'm an American, but whenever I do, you guys always get mad at me, so I'm not going to say it. I'm not
outlier, or
I don't mean they're a communist. I'm just it's a joke. I have fun
in Norway.
But sorry,
is this
not
country
say
just a lucky outlier, or could this success be replicated in other economies around the world? Well, the truth is that Norway wasn't always this prosperous. This is Norway in the 1960s. It was an economy mainly based on fishing, with a GDP similar in size to underdeveloped countries like Bangladesh or Nigeria. Now, in fairness, Norway's population was and
Bangladesh and Nigeria, though, have enormous populations, so I'm sure their per capita GDP was much higher than those two.
Nigeria.
It did say GDP, not GDP per capita.
60s. Size to underdeveloped country based on fishing, with a GDP similar in size to underdeveloped countries like Bangladesh or Nigeria.
That was per capita,
now,
that'd be bad.
In fairness, Norway's population was and still is far smaller than these other countries, and the average Norwegian back then had a quality of life similar to their European neighbours in Spain or Greece. But Norway in the 1960s was still a far cry from the economic powerhouse it is today. This all started to change, though, in May of 1963, when the Norwegian government asserted sovereign rights over natural resources in this area of the North Sea. This was basically the government saying that this ocean here, this is ours now. Oh, if we happen to find any oil here, that's ours too. Now, fortunately, Norway was a member of NATO, and so it did not get the freedom treatment that other countries did when they tried out this national...
What are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about, man. We were there to protect Iraqi citizens. We were not interested in oil. That's a myth.
Business in the 1960s. But 6 years later, in 1969, a ship called the Ocean Viking struck oil in the North Sea. And from that, oil production in the region exploded, because they found a lot of oil. Like a lot. Like 1.6 million barrels a day a lot. This meant that in the mid-1970s, Norway produced more oil per capita than any other country in the world. And even today, it is only beaten out by Kuwait.
What about Saudi Arabia?
The United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia. Now, the United Arab Emirates and
Are you seeing that number? Kuwait, which is... Let's take a look at Kuwait. Where's the area? Kuwait is this small, okay? It's that small. Look how big Saudi Arabia is. And even the United Arab Emirates is, what, like, at least twice, if not 3 times the size. But, I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, what, like 30 times the size Saudi Arabia is of Kuwait? Wow. Wait. That's crazy. Like, that small, like, that must, so Kuwait must be the most densely populated oil, or just the most densely concentrated oil in the world, because the fact that they're that small and they more than double the next two is insane.
Saudi Arabia. Now, I know what you are thinking, and no, this is not a story about another country that just got rich off oil and now everybody in the country is living like a freshly signed NFL player. It is actually the opposite. Rather than getting drunk off the oil wealth they had discovered, the Norwegian government was very prudent with the revenue from these finite resources. The oil boom caused Norway's GDP to grow over 5 times in the 1970s, growing from $12 billion to $65 billion in this period. But this newfound wealth was not being generated through private companies like Shell, Exxon or BP, but rather a publicly run and owned company called Statoil. This meant that the profits from oil and natural gas sales were not going to fill the pockets of private shareholders, but rather directly to the government. This made the Norwegian government very, very rich, meaning that if they wanted to, they could have easily gone on a public spending spree building fancy cities and public infrastructure while also reducing taxes, just like many other countries have done in a similar position. This kind of approach would have been very popular amongst citizens because short term, it meant less taxes and a boost to quality of life.
Can I just say, Norway and Sweden and Denmark, you guys have the most beautiful buildings. Actually, second most beautiful buildings. The most beautiful buildings I've ever seen was when I went to Brussels in Belgium. It was amazing. I felt like I was in a Disney film, a fairy tale.
Life. But they didn't. And today, income and business quality of life. But they didn't. And today, income and business taxes in Norway are still among some of the highest in the world. Fortunately for Norway, the government had the foresight to realise that oil wealth was not forever, and that the citizens of Norway would not be satisfied if they had to go back to fishing in a generation's time. So, the government invested the money into a piggy bank. A very large piggy bank called a sovereign wealth fund. In fact, this is the largest sovereign wealth fund in the world, beating out China's State Investment Corporation, which is remarkable considering that China has a population 270 times larger than Norway's.
Question, is this large discrepancy because never mind, I'm going to say something stupid.
This is a fund that belongs to the people of Norway. The rationale is that this oil and these natural resources were originally the property of the Norwegian people, and so it is they who should receive the revenue from the sale of those resources. This means that every man, woman, and child who is a citizen of Norway essentially has around $200,000 invested into what is a giant hedge fund. Now, this money is unfortunately not accessible by these citizens to spend on gold-plated Lamborghinis or super yachts. The money itself is actually not even accessible to the Norwegian government. In fact, only the profit generated from these investments is used to fund things like education, which helps to explain the very skilled workforce, a very strong welfare system, public infrastructure, and of course, reinvestment into the fund itself. In 2017...
One of the big things I noticed in Europe is that, and I went to like the city, me, my dad, and brother took, I think it was 2016. It was after my third year in college. So I went to college 2011, 2012. My 13, 14. So 2014, I believe, I is when I went back, which is when I was 21 years old, I guess. And what I noticed was, one, you guys have very little fat people. You do, though, have a lot more smokers than in the U.S. But three is that, oh my god. Oh yeah, you had very little homeless people, even in the major cities, and so you guys are doing something right. And what I wanted to ask is also, what makes Norway different from, and I don't mean just like they're not corrupt. I mean, why didn't Norway become corrupt? Why did Norway set up all of these things to ensure no corruption, where these other OPEC countries didn't? Is it part of the culture? Is it because maybe they were one of the last to discover their oil, and so they learned from the nations that didn't? And another big thing I wanted to bring up is that there's this nation, pretty much the opposite, opposite strategy that the Norwegians have went with and are going with, is it was one of the very small Pacific island nations like Palau or Nauru or Kiribati or Vanuatu, Tuvalu, Tonga. It wasn't Samoa. I think it was like Nauru or something like that. I'm not sure exactly, but they had an island where basically birds would defecate on. It was like a common like stopping point for birds for centuries or probably thousands of years, where they would poop on it, and bird poop, as it like solidifies on the ground and builds up over like hundreds or thousands of years, creates some kind of great chemical or byproduct that is really good for agriculture. And so that made this nation, I don't exactly, it could have been Tonga. I don't think it was Fiji or Samoa. It was Tonga or Nauru or Palau or something like that. Vanuatu maybe. And they, rather than doing the, making sure the people own the resources and that they set up funds for the future, so when they burn out of it, everyone's not right back where they started. Well, basically, they once they found out how expensive, or once they recognized the demand for the large amount of resources for fertilizer on their island, they got super rich and had a crazy GDP per capita, but they just spent and spent and spent and spent and spent, and they had much less of a history of economics and economic teaching. And so they went from like the top 3, maybe even the number 1 at one point per capita nation in the world, GDP per capita. And then in a few decades, once all of that ran out, which was much faster than oil would in these countries, they were right back to where they were. Like, maybe even worse or something. And just like, whoa, we have this really good money. Let's live the high life these people do. And then, oh, now it's gone. We made no investments. We made no plans for the future when we run out of this bird poop fertilizer. And then they went right back to where they started.
Fund made an incredible 131. In 2017, the fund made an incredible 131 billion US dollars from its investments. Now, this fund is a very diverse portfolio of stocks, bonds, cash, commodities, but what it does invest in is not nearly as interesting.
What's the difference? Okay, a stock and a bond. I don't exactly know the difference. Obviously, cash is cash, and commodities is your assets, right? The cash on hand, bonds, and
these. But what it does invest in is not nearly as interesting as what it does not invest in. The Norwegian government set up an ethical council that oversees investing decisions of all of the fund, and it has excluded investing in things like weapons manufacturers, tobacco companies, and companies that have caused severe environmental damage, or companies that have breached workers' rights and labour laws. Additionally, in an effort to diversify where they get their money from, the fund is also forbidden to invest in fossil energy companies. Perhaps most interesting of all is that there is one country on the planet
North
that
Korea?
is expressly forbidden to invest. And you could probably hazard a guess as to what that is. Yeah, that's right. It's good old Norway. This means that all of the investments of this fund are actually in foreign companies, securities and commodities. Now, despite the massive political power that gives Norway to influence foreign companies, it also means that the fund's performance is independent of the Norwegian economy. Now,
I missed that, guys. I'm sorry. I've been rewinding a lot.
Political power companies, securities and commodities. Now, despite the massive political power that gives Norway to influence foreign companies, it also means that the fund's performance is independent of the Norwegian economy. Now, this fund was a fantastic piece of forethought by the Norwegian government, and practically means that Norway is now the national equivalent of the guy that wins the lottery, keeps his day job, and invests his money into a stock portfolio.
Nice.
It certainly is not as cool, and it does not get as much attention as blowing it all on bombastic displays of wealth, but it does mean that they...
Not as cool? I think it's much more cool to do what Norway is doing than to blow it all on this.
...will be safe and secure for generations to come. To finish it up, it is only fair to look at some of the economic issues that are present in Norway. First and foremost is that it still has an incredibly high cost of living compared to wages. Given the very high taxes, the average Norwegian worker is bringing home about $3,200 US a month. Now, this is far higher than the US average of $2,730 US per month, but it does not go nearly as far because Norway is an expensive US per month, but it does not go nearly as far because Norway is an expensive place. A mid-range restaurant meal in America tends to run about $50 for 2 people without drinks. In Norway, expect to be paying about $92. A monthly utility bill for US gas, electricity,
I feel like 50 might be a bit low, maybe like 65.
water and garbage is expected to be about $130. That same bill in Norway is $176. A new, very basic family car, such as a base model Volkswagen Golf, can easily be had in America for around $20,000.
Despite it having to be shipped from Germany, or we have, never mind.
In Norway, that same car would cost you $36,473.
So this is a big question I have for you guys, is that it seems like the, I can be wrong, I'm a novice, to say the least, in economics, but, so, does this mean that when it comes to all of the basic needs of Norwegians, they're all met no matter if you're rich or poor, but when it comes to the more slightly non-needed but wanted and for convenience, more luxury items, it seems like you really can't buy these things unless you are very wealthy, right? And so I'm not sure if the $16,000 discrepancy here is worth worth the taxes that is worth the public services in the USA that you have to pay for that you don't in Norway.
Which is particularly ironic given the proximity to where these cars are actually manufactured.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the citizens of Norway do almost universally agree, though, that they are happy to put up with these high taxes and this incredibly high cost of living for everyday items because in return, they do not have to worry about serious economic hardship. Nobody in Norway is going to go bankrupt because of a medical situation. Nobody has to worry about taking on crippling debt to get an education, and they do not have the fear of being homeless if they lose their jobs. So, is Norway really the perfect economy?
Man, you guys have a beautiful landscape.
Every treasurer hangs a poster of above their bed to look at night? Well, no, not really. To anyone who has watched this channel before, all 2 of you, you will know that I am a huge fan of planned social democratic economic systems. And Norway is a great example of such a system.
You got like
they
1.5
have
million.
done everything right with the opportunities that they have been given, but they were still extremely lucky. And expecting that every country can get to where Norway is today just by copying and pasting their current government fiscal policies is foolish. That being said, if you do find yourself in charge of a country that has won the oil lottery or is riding the high of any other economic boom, Norway really should be the framework that you are working off.
Commies. No, I'm joking, alright? I just like to say it. It's a very good video. I very much respect Norway even more after listening all the stuff they implement. There are drawbacks with everything, but they seem to be very happy. And, yeah.
Thanks for watching, guys. As always, all of the references for this video are in the description, along with my email if you have any other further questions about what has been said here.
Awesome video. Great. I'm going to look at why oil doesn't corrupt Norway, I think, after this. See you guys. I learned a lot. Probably sounded like an idiot a lot. Please, you guys are going to get mad at my comedy jokes. Hope you're doing well. Chin up if you're not. You'll be good soon. Don't worry. See ya.